Welcome back. This is going to be your first tutorial in learning how to use Adobe InDesign. We actually are not going to do much in InDesign because we need to gather some information before beginning to use the program. We are actually going to create a magazine layout, and I want you to be able to have access to photos and potentially fonts that you would like to use before we get into the nuts and bolts of the actual program. So take a minute, pause the video if you need to. I'd like you to think of a city that you would like to visit someday. Try to think of a fairly well-known city because you're going to be gathering information about that city to complete this tutorial. You're going to need to choose between 5 and 10 pictures of that city. Remember, those pictures are going to have to be of high quality because we cannot make the quality any bigger than it already is. You're going to need to have some sort of building that is iconic to that city, like the Eiffel Tower, Leaning Tower of Pisa, whatever it might be, because we're going to use that image to replicate what they have here where it says bar cafe over here on the left hand side of the magazine spread. You're also going to need to give it a title. I would assume it'll have something to do with the city that you choose. You're also going to need to choose a color scheme. They have obviously chosen their color scheme based upon the greens in this picture, which they use right here. But keep that in mind as you are choosing images. So again, we are going to be learning InDesign, but we need a few things before we can do that. So what you want to do, you're going to use your internet browser. I like to use Google Chrome, but whichever one is most accessible to you. I like to go to Google Images. Okay, and the city that I'm going to choose is, I'm going to choose Addis Ababa, which is the capital of Ethiopia. Obviously, I have some ties there, so I thought that would be fun for me. What I'm going to do is start with just writing the name of the city, because that will obviously get me quite a few pictures. You also need to be sure you go into your search tools and you make it only large-sized images. Anything other than a large-sized image is not going to look good on your magazine layout. It will look pixelated, distorted, and in general it won't be very good quality. So make sure you change the search size to large. It's under search tools and then large. Again, start with a really basic heading, just the name of the city you want. Go through and start looking for photos you might like to use. Okay, let's say I choose this one because it's a cool picture, but also it will work well for my magazine layout. If I like that picture, what I need to do is simply click on it, which will take you to this kind of gray bar if you're in Chrome. Then you are going to right click and you're going to say Save Image As. Remember to navigate to your shortcut to multimedia. Okay. And then you need to save it into your project folder and into your project 1 folder. Okay. My shortcut is missing because I'm not at school and I don't have access to my Z drive, but you all know where to save these. We've talked about this before. So continue searching for images, and remember, any image will work, but if we refresh ourselves on this magazine layout, a nice large picture, and then we also need a picture of some sort of iconic building or statue in that city that we can use. I would just collect between 5 and 10 images, and once you have done that, you can move on to the next tutorial. Just a few tips on searching in Google, especially if you're using Google Chrome. A lot of times when you click on a picture, it gives you suggestions that are similar to this picture. It says try these too. So if you're having trouble finding something just on the first search engine, you may consider looking in this area as well. Also, maybe use just the search to find out some facts about that city, and maybe you can figure out a well-known building or a well-known statue that would work well for that side piece if you're struggling with that. I'm going to type in Addis Ababa statues. Okay, that's a good way to try to find a statue that could be used on the left. You could type in Addis Ababa buildings. If you want to focus on cafes, you could type in cafes. But in general, they just need to be pictures having to do with the city that you have chosen. All right, a few other things to keep in mind as you are looking for pictures. When you save them, you always want to rename them to something that you know and understand. So what I have done is I've found this picture of a cross that I would like to use on the left-hand side. Now it's not a building per se, but it's a very iconic figure in Ethiopia. So I'm going to go ahead and use that for that left edge. It also has a very simple background, which you want to keep in mind because you may want to go in and cut that background out. Because again, if you look over here, it's essentially cutting that side of the building out. Depending on how complex the picture you choose, we can do that in Photoshop fairly quickly. So again, I found the picture I want for the left. So what I'm going to do is say File, Save As. I'm going to go to my project 1 and then into my tutorial folder, and you'll see I already saved it, but I'll go ahead and save it again. I want to name it Cross, left hand side. Very specific, so I know exactly where I want it to go on the page. Okay. What you might also do is think about different activities that happen in that place and type in more specific information into the search bar. I'm going to type in Ethiopian coffee, because that's a very big part of what they do. There's actually a specific ceremony around coffee, so I'm going to go ahead and say Ethiopian coffee ceremony. I'm going to try to find a picture that I can use for that upper portion right here, that larger picture that also has a lot of negative space. So I'm going to search through, see what I can find that would work. And remember, you want to try to pick something that gives a lot of information about the city that you're choosing. So I really like this one. It doesn't have as much negative space, but it's a very cool picture with a good perspective. And I like the colors, so I know that I could use maybe this color red for the color scheme, similar to what they've done with the blue here. So I'm going to go ahead and save that one as. I'll say right side, because it's on the right side of the page, and I'll say largest picture. Sorry. Remember, this is for you to be able to learn how to use InDesign, but it should also be something that you're interested in, something that you find fun, or in this case, a place you may want to visit, or maybe a place you have visited. So choose your pictures wisely and take your time. Don't rush through choosing the pictures. Really research the city, find some things that interest you about it, find some things that you think would be interesting to cover, and then move on to the introduction tutorial and learning how to use those photos in the actual InDesign program. But please do not rush this step. Take your time, find the images that you like, so that in the end your product is a reflection of you, and also that you will keep your interest in the project as you are learning how to use the program.